Here now, Howie Kurtz, Fox News media analyst and host of Media Buzz, Sundays on Fox News. Joel Rubin, former Deputy Assistant Secretary of State under Obama, and Michael Goodwin, New York Post columnist and Fox News contributor. Now, Mike, I want to start with you. You just wrote a piece about how the Dems' intransigence on this issue shows that they're still kind of not able to get over the 2016 election. Couldn't the same, though, be said for the American media?
Well, sure. I mean, they are one and the same, really, right? I call them the media handmaidens. Look, I think that what we saw with the dueling speeches yesterday was, on the surface, it looked like, well, they should be able to just kind of cut the difference here, split the difference, and reach a deal. That's what they're supposed to do. But in fact, because the Democrats view themselves having an advantage in the shutdown, they are loath to give the president anything. They don't want to give the president anything that he could claim as a victory because they still do not view him as a legitimate president. So many members of the Democratic Party, the far left especially, and Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer are afraid of those people. Their jobs are on the line if they cross the far left wing of their party, and so they are going along with this resistance. I mean, had they negotiated with the president for the last 2 years, they could have gotten a lot of things done for this country, but at this stage of the game, they've thrown their lot with the mob.
I mean, a little bit of movement toward Trump. Trump's changed the makeup of the wall. It won't be cement, it'll be steel. He's obviously showing movement on DACA. He'll probably do something in good faith on that. He's gone up to Capitol Hill. He opens the door of the White House. They meet on the weekend. They go to Camp David, more strategy. I mean, he's done a lot.
He's dying to cut deals. He likes to cut deals.
Well, he wants to get something done for the people. So every time they yell a question, Howie, at the president, they say, well, what about these government workers? What about these furloughed workers? I'm waiting for President Trump to look at the American and say, well, have you talked to Nancy and Chuck about that? Because I've been trying to get to yes with them for a while. But it's always pegged to the president. And I think that Jonathan Karl moment and the Acosta moment, back-to-back, Kellyanne yesterday and the president today, that was quite something. They're looking like pundits. They're not looking like reporters.
Well, for White House correspondent for CNN to say, is the president going to lie tonight, is in a whole different category. But this is the week, Laura, when many in the media came out of the closet and just decided to constantly call Donald Trump a liar. And they would say, and they did it as a preemptive strike. In a few hours, the president will come on and he's going to lie. He shouldn't even be allowed airtime because he's going to lie. Then he gives the speech. They come out, well, he lied. Now, there were some legitimate fact checks, and there have been some claims the administration has had to back off this week.
And we on this network have pointed it out.
And Chris Wallace, among others. But the name calling now, I think it has just reached a level where there's no fig leaf anymore, and the emotion is coming out, and the name calling the president a liar.
Yeah, Joel, speaking of name calling, here is Maria Hinojosa, NPR's, I think, Latina correspondent. Let's watch.
What we're really talking about right now is the fact that arch right-wing conservatives, Republicans, some white supremacists want to change the conversation around the narrative around who we are as a country. Oh my God, border security, border security. Guys, I've been talking about this story for 30 years. For 30 years, there's been the neurosis about border security.
Just a moment, we're going to talk to the Lieutenant Governor of Texas. He's going to talk a lot about the crime. Justin McCallum, Texas, what it's done to devastate Latino families. So I'm not quite sure what she's talking about there. But Joel, how is that objective reporting on something that even the media before, 5 minutes ago, had said was a humanitarian crisis at the border?
Well, Laura, we need objective reporting, and we need to have it clear so that the American people can decide. The facts about the border and the facts about the wall are ones where when numbers are put out, as they have been by Congress, by members of both parties, they see that there is a level of funding for border security that is reasonable and rational. Now, unfortunately, we're now in a position where the emotions are so high.
No,
right.
They won't discuss
now
it.
we have
Democrats will not discuss any movement toward the president. AP said it takes two to tango. Well, the president said it's my shutdown too. He said that early on, okay?
He did.
He said that. But now he said, okay, we want to try to get somewhere here. Let's meet. Let's figure out something together. I'm going to operate in good faith. Can you join me? the intransigence here is not on the president. If it was, he'd be sitting in the Oval Office saying, let's keep it going, let's keep it going.
But last
the
night,
Democrats want to keep this
could have gone
going.
big last night, and I think that's where there might be an ability to see a crack happen. He can go bigger, but right now, if it's just binary, if it's just wall funding, no wall funding, we're not going to get anywhere.
Panel, I want to stay on the media and get your thoughts on this issue of someone leaking information from what was supposed to be an off-the-record meeting, a briefing, with President Trump and other members of his team, a select group of network anchors. The New York Times' Maggie Haberman was not among those invited yesterday. It was a luncheon, but somehow she got all the details, tweeting, quote, Trump didn't want to give the speech tonight and told TV anchors at lunch today that his planned trip to the border is a waste of time. And a CNN anchor, who was also not invited, reporting details today as well.
The president told television anchors yesterday before his speech that in his words, it's not going to change a damn thing, and that the visit to the wall tomorrow, or to the border rather tomorrow, he calls really pointless. I wonder then why he requested the nation's time yesterday.
Howie, you've been doing some digging on this. We know basically who was at this meeting, a number of journalists. What did you find out?
Well, I reached out to all the network anchors who were there. A couple got back to me. CNN's Chris Cuomo, NBC's Chuck Todd said they couldn't talk about this at all because the meeting was off the record.
Okay, now let's examine that answer.
Right.
They couldn't talk about it because the meeting was off the record. Well, the details of the meeting are already out. And we're not asking them to reveal the details of the meeting. We're asking them if they revealed the details of the meeting to someone else. That's a journalistic question regarding ethics. And they're talking a lot about ethics lately and slamming the president for being immoral and a liar and all the rest of the things. How would that be off the record whether they leaked the contents of the off-the-record briefing?
Well, some take the approach that I can't talk about this at all because I went in under these ground rules. Now, I talked to our colleague Bret Baier, who was also at the meeting. He said a reporter called him and pumped him for details. He would not talk to this person. He thinks this is horrible because it shows that somebody
They're never going to do it again.
Can't be trusted and would maybe not.
They're not going to do it again.
And I talked to Peter Baker, the New York Times reporter who wrote this story, and he said it was a fair question to ask that he had written these kind of stories under Obama. I've written some stories like this too. And he told me it's our job to convince people who are in closed-door meetings at the White House.
I don't blame them.
To tell us what happens inside, and that's true whether these people are White House officials, members of Congress, or other journalists, and he says it provides more insight.
I don't even blame, I'm not even blaming the New York Times. I mean, you want people to give you stuff. I'm talking about there are people in that meeting, Jonathan Karl, right? Was Jonathan? No, George Stephanopoulos. Yeah. Am I getting this right? Jonathan Karl.
CBS.
No, he wasn't there. It was Stephanopoulos, Cuomo, Chuck Todd. Those three. Univision anchor or reporter,
right?
And a few others. CBN's. Reporter was there. Raymond Arroyo was there. He's going to talk about not what happened, but he was there. Bret Baier, not many people. So it's one of those individuals.
Yeah, it's a pretty select group that you can focus on. I don't know who leaked it, but
it goes to the angle. They leaked it because when President Trump said, and I don't know why he would have said it, that this was a waste of time. That's not a really good thing to have said if he said that behind closed doors. But it went to their narrative. Did it not?
Yes, but what I'm told is that the tone may have been a little bit lighter. He may have just been tweaking his staff. Oh, these geniuses told me to give the speech.
Yeah, he's always off the cuff. So I bet that's more what it was. All right, Michael Goodwin, before we let you go, this, I think, has eroded the credibility of the American media. I mean, if they want to fact-check the president, that's fine. That is their job. But when you become a political pundit and try to pass yourself off as an objective anchor, I'm not getting that. I don't see how that helps democracy. They're always democracy dies in the darkness. Is this what? I think journalism is dying in the darkness.
Right. Well, listen, the bias has been obvious, of course, for more than 2 years now. But I thought earlier, Laura, you pointed to the Morning Consult Politico poll, which showed 42% believe the border is a crisis. An additional 37% think it's a problem. So here you have 79% of the respondents. It was a very big poll.
Great point.
Saying that this is a real issue. According to the media, it's not an issue at all. It's not a crisis. It's not a problem. It's just kind of seasonal problems that pop up every now and then. Nothing happening here. Nothing to see. I think that is the great bias that is hurting the country.
And Joel, don't you think, I mean, my point is, if the media were a little bit fairer, even 20% more fair, the numbers would probably be a lot higher in that poll for people seeing this for what it is.
Yeah, I think the media's credibility is really coming into question with this leak. And I think it's something that when we see the president and the media fighting like they are, the enemy of the people, going back and forth that he describes the media, it's not good for anybody.
I think both sides should tone it down. Thanks, guys, so much.
Joining us now, Congressman Mark Meadows, Freedom Caucus, Jim Jordan, Freedom Caucus as well. Jim, you look like you're standing outside the White House. Is that where you are?
No, I'm in the studio.
Okay. Look. We're losing all these lives. 90% of the heroin comes in. Human trafficking, drug trafficking, violence.
Yeah.
I mean, if saving American lives isn't a priority, why do we have government? What is their role?
No, Sean, you're exactly right. I loved your opening statements. Look, the vast majority of the country understands this is a crisis. Democrats get it. Republicans get it. Independents get it. The only people who don't get it are Democrats in Washington, D.C., and it comes right down to this issue. Democrats in Washington are more concerned about stopping the president than they are in helping the country. More concerned about stopping President Trump than dealing with the 400,000 apprehensions on the border last year alone, and the drugs, the gangs, and the human traffic violence that you talked about. So until their constituents tell them, that's why it's great you put the number up there, until their constituents tell them, focus on the country, focus on the crisis, we're not going to get this problem solved. And we saw that today in the meeting that the president had with congressional leaders.
You know, Congressman Meadows, if we can now stop 90% of the heroin that comes into the country, and if we can, look, I support immigration. I believe 98% of people that want to cross the border and even illegally want a better life. But it's the 2%. It's the criminal element. It's the cartels. It's the human traffickers. It's potential terrorists that come to our border and want to bring harm to our cities and towns. Why is this so unconcerning to them?
Well, it should be very concerning, and you mentioned it earlier. That's why government was actually founded and is supported, is to protect and serve. And if government is falling down on its fundamental premise of why it exists, then we've got to do better than that. But, you know, listen, Sean, the big thing today is going to be about the fact that the president walked out of a meeting because he said it was a waste of time to deal with Democrats because they're not negotiating. And you're exactly right.
Well, they've offered $1. They're insulting.
Well,
they sent aides to negotiate with the vice president. Pretty insulting.
Exactly. They're not negotiating. They're not negotiating in good faith. He should have walked out of that meeting. But I tell you who he's not walking out on. He's not walking out on the moms and dads who have lost their children. He's not walking out on law enforcement officers who have to fight this each and every day, and sometimes tragedy strikes there. He's not walking out on the families who have to deal with drug overdoses each and every day. He's staying engaged, and I applaud him for doing that, and we need to get behind him and stand behind him. Will the
Republicans, I know the president means what he says. We've learned that about him in 2 years. Will the Republicans in the House and Senate hold the line and stand up on the principle that these lives can be saved? Jim Jordan.
That we will. We held together today when the Democrats offered an appropriation bill, a spending bill on the House floor. Only a handful of Republicans voted with the Democrats. So we're holding strong, and we're going to continue to hold strong because this is a crisis. The drug problem, the gang problem, the human trafficking problem is real. Everyone gets it except Democrats in Washington, D.C. And again, they're too much focused. They're too focused on just stopping the president. Let's address this crisis. How can it not be a crisis when we've seen this caravan phenomena over the last several months play out on our southern border? Anyone who's watching knows it's a crisis.
Last word, Mark Meadows.
Yeah, it's not a manufactured crisis. It's a crisis that's happening on our southern border, but more importantly, it's a crisis that's happening in our communities each and every day. We've got to make sure we fight back, stand strong, and stand with this president and take the political games out of it.
You know what? There are things worth fighting for. American lives are one of them.